Hello and welcome to Promise Kept number 87 in our Promise Kept Bible study. We're looking at the promises of God and we're going to be doing 150 of them. And today's promise of God is actually a bit of a duplicate. So we've seen this promise before in a different book of the Bible. And I think it's good to look at it again, just because a promise kept is a good thing to look at many times, but also because it's something that you're going to see in the Bible often, especially in the Gospels. You're going to see things reiterated, and God is faithful to do that because it's like if somebody says something once, or in a court of law, if you have one witness, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But if you have it said multiple times, different ways, but about the same thing, you start to tend to believe it. Now, as far as the Gospels go, and when I say gospel, I mean the good news of Jesus. So there's 4 books of the Bible, the first 4 books of the New Testament, which are considered Gospels. They are the accounting of what Jesus said and did while he was on the earth, written by people that had first-hand knowledge of it. In the book of Luke, of course, Luke was not with Jesus, but Luke interviewed people that were with Jesus. So anyway, we have these 4 stories about Jesus, these 4 testimonies about Jesus. They're sort of like biographies of Jesus written by people who witnessed what was going on, or the interviewer of people who witnessed what was going on. And they write these 4 stories. Now, when I say different, I'm trying to not say different because they're not very different. And to tell you the truth, that's part of the reason that I came to believe in Jesus. I was an atheist. I didn't believe at all. And in a broken state, an acquaintance gave me a Bible, and I said, well, I've never read this. I really didn't have much interest in reading it, but I might as well read it. And I decided to not read the beginning part because I come from Jewish roots and I'd already kind of dismissed Judaism. So I said, well, I've never read about Jesus, knew enough to read the second part. I didn't know what a gospel was. I thought gospel was African-American type of music. Interesting. But anyway, I read the first 4 Gospels, and thankfully the Bible that I was given was a study Bible. So it had notes about who wrote it, where they wrote it, when they wrote it, that kind of thing. And at the end of reading the first 4 books of the Bible, the Gospels, I just came to the knowledge that there's no way that these first 4 books could be so similar, if not the same, when they were written by different people, different places, different times, in a time where there was no way they could communicate, no email, nothing like that. And so in my mind, I thought this has to be true because they're so similar, saying basically the same thing, but they're written, like I said, different times, different places, different people. And so that is how I came to believe. Now, I say that to say they're similar. They're very similar, but yet they're different in certain ways. And that would be the hallmark of any kind of event that happens that's being seen by different people. Different people see it from different angles. Different people have different memories. Certain things stand out more to other people. And that's why, again, in a court of law, there are often multiple witnesses that see an event and they see it, but they've seen it from different angles, different memories of it, but it's similar, but not exactly the same. And to any police officer or detective, that makes it more true. That is why when they get to crime scenes and things like that, they separate the people away from each other and try to get their stories separately because they don't want them to talk and have the same story in the same way, because that's not real. They've talked about it. They've corroborated with each other before the story. So these Gospels, these 4 tales, these 4 reiterations of what people saw, the Matthew, Mark, John, and then, as I said, Luke, sorry about my voice, they are the same, but a little bit different, and that makes them more credible. And so, in saying that, our promise verse is seen in one of the other Gospels, but we're going to see it in Matthew, and it's chapter 21, And it's verse 23, and I'm simply going to say it, and then you're going to know that you've heard it before. It says, "And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith." So we've talked about this, like I said, in a different book of the Bible where Jesus says, when you ask for things, if you have faith, you're going to receive it. Now, we'll go back and read the verses before, and you can see the context because you'll get even more of how you've heard this before. In verse 18, it says, "In the morning, as he, Jesus, was returning to the city, he became hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the wayside, he went to it and found nothing on it but only leaves. And he said to it, 'May no fruit ever come from you again.' And the fig tree withered at once. When the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, 'How did this fig tree wither at once?' And Jesus answered them, 'Truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, it will happen.' In our verse, 'And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith.'" So there we have it. A little bit different of a telling of it, but we saw in one of the other Gospels somebody reiterating how Jesus had said, if you ask in prayer in this case and don't doubt, you can move a mountain. You can cause a tree to wither away by your word. And that's, of course, the hard part. No doubting. Who in their right mind would say to themselves, I have no doubt that if I say to a mountain, move, it's going to move. I mean, it's impossible unless you're perfect and you're God and you know that you can do it. I mean, that it seems very, very hard. Or delusional, right? I mean, you would say to somebody who said that they're delusional. But that's the degree of faith that God wants. It's kind of funny to say it that way, but delusional faith. Like, I have so much faith and power in me, in what Jesus said, that I can move a mountain. That is a high, high degree of faith. And, it does seem delusional, but God is so amazing. That's the part that it kind of gets to. When you believe in the truth about God, that he can do anything, as much as move a mountain, it gets into that realm of delusion, but it's not delusion because he can do it. And he says we can do it. So, I don't know, it's hard. It's hard because people on the outside looking at us would, in a way, believe that we're delusional, not only in this way, but in other ways that we believe. When we say we believe we're going to raise from the dead, to others on the outside, they would say we're delusional, but we're not delusional because we've seen, not only from the Bible, but we've seen proof from the outside that Jesus rose from the grave. And if a human being rises from the grave, not just rises from the grave, because people are pronounced dead and come out of it, but not only rises from the grave, but predicts that they're going to die in a terrible fashion and then rise again from the grave, that's where it gets into God territory. And we believe it because we see the proof, as I said. We see billions and billions of Christ followers coming from somebody who died on a cross, and we see billions of churches all over from somebody who was an uneducated carpenter who was, doing a ministry for 3 years. We see the calendar changed because of his birth and death. And so there's lots of other reasons we believe in the resurrection of Jesus, but the point is, to somebody on the outside, we would look delusional. So this is one of those things, getting to that degree of faith where you don't doubt that we can do what God says we can do and that clearly he can do it. It's a high level of faith. But yet, here's the promise. Whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith. And that comes with the caveat, and do not doubt. So it's not just faith, even though in other verses in the Bible it says just a kernel of faith. I mean, that shows you what kind of faith Jesus is looking for, a tiny little bit. But in God's economy, it's huge to the point I just made. You know, having the faith that I'm going to resurrect from the dead, it's a huge amount of faith. You know, I'm sticking my life on it. I'm sticking my eternal life on it. I'm sticking everything I do on it. I mean, you know, I could be doing a whole lot of other things that, you know, maybe I want to do, but, you know, I believe in Jesus. I believe what he says, believe what he did for me on the cross. And so, I'm going to follow what he says. And lots of the things in the Bible that he says, you know, they're hard sometimes to follow, but I'm following because I believe and I have faith in the resurrection, in my resurrection. So all that to say, I don't even know what my original point was. This type of faith is monumental. And I think that God multiplies our faith. You know, just like he says, a day is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years like a day. You know, even the smallest bit of faith in God's economy is huge faith because he sees what it takes. You know, he sees what we give up and what we stake our life on and what we teach our children and tell our friends and stand up for, even though we might be persecuted. You know, that kind of faith, it means a lot to Jesus. So anyway, it's something to strive for is what I'm saying. The type of faith that does not doubt your power because Jesus says you have it. That type of faith. I mean, I've seen glimmers of it in some people, and I admire it, and I can't say that I have it, that I ask in prayer and I don't doubt that I'll get things, you know, especially if I'm being real, you know, if you've asked in prayer for a really long time and you haven't gotten them, you do start to doubt. You even start to say, why should I even pray? And that's where, you know, Jesus encourages us to keep praying, keep knocking, keep asking, you know, that hopefully eventually we're going to get it, that he wants to hear from us no matter what. So anyway, a beautiful promise, you know, when you look at it in all the different layers of complexity, and really when you do think about what it means to have this faith, what it means to God to have this type of faith, and to really strive towards it, to more and more look at the way that he's super faithful, even in the things that he doesn't allow us to have, that he's protecting us from things, that he's always after our good, our higher good. It builds your faith, and hopefully in your lifetime, you're getting more and more and more and more to the point where you don't doubt things like we just read. That if you ask with no doubt in prayer, in your private time with God, if you ask him, that he's going to give you things that you ask for. It's something to strive for. I'm certainly not there, but I would just say, just keep looking at his faithfulness, keep looking at creation, how amazing it is, keep looking at all the different ways he's blessed you, and that hopefully, over your time of walking with Jesus, you'll have more and more and more and more faith. Okay, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.